If you want to have more control in your ground strokes, it's going to be very helpful to apply topspin on the ball. How are you going to create topspin? Well, you have to go low to high on your forehand, and you have to go low to high on your backhand. When you apply topspin, there's more of a likelihood that the ball will drop inside of the baseline. This is also true when you start hitting harder. When you have topspin, more chances to hit hard and have balls go in versus having a more flatter stroke. But unfortunately, in recent times, a lot of players at the recreational level are obsessed with topspin, and this is leading to some problems. Now, some players are obsessed with spin rackets, so they will buy rackets that produce a lot of topspin, but you have to understand that no racket produces topspin on its own. If you don't have a topspin swing path, so if you hit the ball very straight like this, it doesn't matter if you're playing with a topspin racket, you're not going to get any topspin on your stroke. So you actually have to apply topspin to be able to get topspin. And how are you going to do that? Well, you're going to have to go low to high, whether it be your forehand or your one-handed or your two-handed backhand. When you go low to high, you will generate topspin. And you don't necessarily have to do the windshield wiper. You can have more of what I call a flat topspin forehand and backhand, which is something that you see a lot on the pro tours, especially when it comes to the two-handed backhand. Now, when it comes to spin obsession, people are more specifically obsessed with generating heavy topspin, because here are the facts. The best players in the history of tennis all hit their forehands with a tremendous amount of spin. Whether we're talking about Novak Djokovic, Rafael Nadal, Roger Federer, Carlos Alcaraz, or Jannik Sinner, all these guys have a tremendous amount of speed on their forehand, but also a tremendous amount of RPM. I'm not going to demonstrate because I can't hit a forehand like that. I cannot hit it nearly as heavy as those guys. But unfortunately, a lot of players, especially at the recreational level, get obsessed with trying to hit a forehand like that. And this is where problems start. What you have to realize is that the contact with the ball is over in sheer milliseconds. So players want to do what's called the windshield wiper finish. So it's a vertical finish on the forehand where the tip of the racket goes up and around in this way. And this indeed is the swing path that you'll see from someone like Sinner or Alcaraz. Now, of course, the steepness of the swing path will differ from player to player. Someone like Sinner and Roger Federer have a little bit more of a diagonal line, Carlos Alcaraz often as well. And then someone like Rafael Nadal has a bit more of a steeper swing path because he puts the ball a little bit higher over the net. But in any case, all these forehands have one thing in common, and that is a vertical swing path. So recreational players want to copy this, but unfortunately, because the contact with the ball is over milliseconds, the only way to manufacture this swing path is by slowing the stroke down and abruptly shortening the stroke. That is the only way where you can consciously manipulate the racket and have it go vertically over the ball. And when you do that, several things will happen. You will hit the ball very thin, and also you will have a very little penetration, or in other words, power on your forehand. Now, when it comes to the backhand, you shouldn't worry about trying to generate this heavy topspin swing path with two hands, because when it comes to the two-handed backhand, the vast majority of players have more of a flat topspin swing path where the tip of the racket comes through as it goes up, and there are some players that have a little bit more of a heavy topspin swing path on the two-handed backhand. On the other hand, on the one-handed backhand, because we don't have the other hand fighting that swing path, there's more freedom, and players get far more heavy topspin on a one-handed backhand, and the swing path is very similar that you'll see on a forehand. So for those reasons, I rarely see someone trying to execute heavy topspin on a two-handed backhand because it's so unnatural. It looks like you're breaking your wrist as you're trying to do that. But I do see it sometimes on the one-handed backhand where players are flipping the racket over like this, and I see it most commonly on the forehand where players are just rolling over like this, and they are abruptly shortening their forehand and losing a lot of control, penetration, and they do gain spin. But unfortunately, this is not heavy topspin. This is thin topspin. Now let me show you what that looks like. So if I just roll over the ball and I make that heavy topspin swing path in isolation, it's very difficult for me to get any type of power on this forehand. The ball is very thin. And another risk of this type of forehand is that this puts a lot of strain on your arm, and you can injure your forearm, your elbow, or even your wrist when you do such a forehand. So what must you do to get more heavy topspin on your forehand, well, you shouldn't try to get heavy topspin on your forehand. That's number one, because even in today's modern game, there are still a lot of players who get less degrees of topspin. There's a range, so some players get a lot of RPMs and some players get a little bit less. So you shouldn't look at the numbers of Alcaraz and Sinner and try to copy that. What you should do is simply intend to finish with your racket a certain way, and this will guarantee you that you will have topspin. So of course it's going to help to come underneath the ball as you're going up. That's going to help topspin a lot, but I want you to have the freedom around the contact where you're not slowing down. You're hitting this ball with a lot of acceleration and you're going to intend to finish upwards. What I like to do is have the racket flip over on the other side where the back of your hand is pointing towards the body. This can promote a more vertical swing path. Another thing that you can do to get a better feel for the swing path is recalibrate the contact point. So you take the backswing out of the equation, you start at the contact and you just do the same thing. You finish with the back of your hand towards the left cheek without taking the racket back. You're going to have more feel and more control over what's happening right at the moment of contact, and it's going to be easier to manufacture this type of swing path. So you do these reps 50 times or so, and then you back up further in the court, and the further back you are, the more it's going to involve a little bit of a take back. And as you do this a lot, you can train yourself to have a more vertical swing path and indeed have a heavier forehand. Now remember guys, it's not necessarily wrong to have flat strokes. So if you're more of an old school player and you're hitting the ball flat and you're having a lot of success with it, just continue playing your style. The old school style is not necessarily wrong, but if you're someone that plays more flat and you're someone that makes a lot of mistakes, it does make sense to try to add more topspin to both your forehand and your backhand.